Hi, I'm Michael Medvinsky, and today I'd like to talk to you about some conceptual understandings, how things work, their function and independence, and think about how we can connect these ways of knowing in other subject areas. So I'd like to start with music. That's what I teach, and the ways that we organize music. So here is a grand staff. We organize pitch this way. So we have treble notes on the top, bass notes on the bottom, and wherever they're placed in the grand staff tells the player how high or how low those notes are. That's also organized in duration. So we go from whole notes, which is the longest in a measure, all the way through to very short notes, but that also is a way of organizing sound. We also have melodic and rhythmic instruments. So here is a rhythmic instrument, a drum set, and that provides the beat in some songs. But there's also other instruments like timpani, triangle, tam-tam, tambourine. Those are also the rhythmic side of music. We have melodic instruments as well. This is a violin and viola. They are homophonic instruments. They can play one or two notes at the most at a time. But there's also other instruments like the flute, the clarinet, the saxophone, the trumpet are also instruments that provide melody. The piano is such an interesting instrument because it can be played as a melodic instrument, it can be played as a harmonic instrument, and it can be actually played at the same time, melody and harmony, to create polyphony. The ways that we organize music can look at these concepts in other content areas as well. So how do you organize in math is numeracy, and how you organize in science, and how you organize in art and things like that. So these are kind of these bigger concepts that I'd like to look at. One of them is interdependence, and how there's mutual dependence between things and how they are related. So in music, we have pitch and rhythm, and if you use pitch and rhythm together, it creates melody. So how does this interdependence work in other ways of understanding? How would interdependence work in physical education? How is one thing related to another thing where they're mutually dependent upon each other? How would it look in culinary arts where ingredients are dependent upon each other that work together? Once you've taken one ingredient and another ingredient, and if you alter the amounts of those ingredients, how does that create a cause and effect? Or how do those ingredients, what are their relationships? How are those objects related? So in music, relationships of sound, we have instrument families, sound moving in patterns of whole steps and half steps. Those are relationships in music. And I'd like for you to think about how are those relationships observed in other areas or other content areas. Also, the conflict and resolution or cause and effect. So I'd like to look at it in music through the 5/1 cadence. So we have pitches that independently wouldn't sound like a cadence. Here is the F that goes and resolves to this E, and that's really what makes the cadence sound like a cadence, is the resolution of one note that resolves to another note that really makes the cadence happen. So these are the connections between the notes, the relationships of the notes, and then a conflict and a resolution, or a cause and an effect. They can also be viewed as key concepts. So one of them is change, and how does the process of going from one thing to another. So I take the idea from music is like a development of a symphony. So how does the development, the ways that the music is played, how does that change over time? Or causation. Things don't just happen. There's a cause and there's effect. So we have in music something like an antecedent phrase and a consequent phrase. So how does one thing sound and another thing happen after that? And also connection. So we live in a world of interacting systems in which the actions of one thing affect another. How do those things connect? And I'd like to leave you with a reflective piece of how does this concept of interdependence, conflict and resolution, relationship, how does that work in other ways of understanding? Thanks for watching.